It's Britney, bitch.
And the Iraq, everywhere, like, such as.
We sitting here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Charlie! Oh!
Our next door neighbors are foreign countries.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Remember Shuffle. My name is Ben. With me as always is my co-host Giordano.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Today, it's just the two of us, no third mic. We will be discussing Grand Theft Auto, and we will be covering GTA 3, GTA Vice City, GTA San Andreas, and also GTA 4, and also the behind-the-scenes making of these games, and also the political controversies that they started in the 2000s. So we got a lot to get through today. Let's get right down to it.
Much like GTA San Andreas, there's a lot to get to.
Yeah, much like GTA San Andreas, this will be a 200-hour pod. Yes, so we are doing GTA because it represents maybe the major trend in gaming that happens in the 2000s. The industry explodes in size, just in general size in terms of its revenues and how much it's selling. We said in our Sims episode that one of the trends in gaming was that it went mainstream or even casual in the case of The Sims. The other trend that helps explain this massive growth is the fact that gamers are aging up. This is something that Rockstar was actively trying to do. Part of Rockstar's explicit mission was to make games for adults. Games aren't for children anymore. They can be mature and provocative and adult. And, you know, we got to give it to them. Mission accomplished. You did it. The other reason that we want to do this is that there are just some very hilarious of the time moral panic scandals featuring, in the words of Nancy Pelosi's daughter, some of our faves. And part of this is just going to be the fun of hindsight dunking on people like Hillary Clinton and Joe Lieberman for being anti-fun as their primary message. There also is something to be said about this rot at the heart of America, where as the country is about to bring just apocalyptic violence upon the Middle East, the thing that they are talking about is the pretend violence and the pretend sex that you can do in a video game. One last fact that I'll add about the gaming industry. In 1996, the entire gaming industry was bringing in $9 billion worldwide. Fast forward to 2011, just at the end of our decade, and the games industry was a $60 billion industry.
Wow.
It dwarfed music and film combined in 2011.
Music, which made over $200,000 in 2011.
In 2023, this is the most recent numbers I have, video games are a $184 billion industry, but film has now caught up. Games weren't able to stay on top.
But I think that's really interesting that in terms of the number of dollars spent relative to other forms of entertainment, this is the highest point of video games prominence. So it is maybe the only time that it'll have ever been bigger than the film industry was during the 2000s or at the end of the 2000s.
And I think GTA is a huge part of the reason why. Now, before we get going, cite your sources or else it's plagiarism. In preparation for this episode, we each did a little bit of replaying of the GTA franchise. Hit the nostalgia button real hard. Played some of the definitive edition on the stupid Rockstar subscription app.
I'm a GTA Plus subscriber now.
Yeah, I pay $8 a month to play 20-year-old games. This is the kind of faux ripoff scam project that would be made fun of on the GTA radio. It's absurd. I also read the book Jacked by David Kushner, the unauthorized behind-the-scenes story of Grand Theft Auto.
So for today's episode, first we will talk about the history of Rockstar games, then we'll get into a holistic view of what makes all of these games great in general. Then we'll go through game by game, Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas, Grand Theft Auto 4, what makes each of these games great and unique. And finally, we'll end off with our themes. Specifically with this episode, we'll be talking a lot about censorship and 2000s moral panic. And then we'll end the episode off with everybody's favorite section, our echoes in the culture.
Yep. Jordan, why don't you start us off? Tell us about the Hauser brothers.
Yeah, so this is something I found out from a book called All Your Bases Are Belong to Us. The Hauser brothers they're the Mike Lazo figures of Rockstar Games. Two incredibly impressive British guys. Folks, I didn't know about this, but GTA, one of our most famous forms of Americana, made by a couple of Brits.
Boo. The third British invasion. They had two music invasions. They gave us the Animals and the Beatles and all them. Mm-hmm. And there was the 90s British invasion with fucking Blur and Oasis. Now the third one is they're coming for our video game.
Yeah, their story is so remarkable. So they're two brothers. One of them always wanted to be a musician or in the record business. And so he started his career at BMG, which is one of the world's biggest music publishers. This is Sam Hauser. And he worked his way up in the music publishing industry before being transferred to the video game division of that company that made the first two Grand Theft Auto games. But we'll see time and time again how much this music industry knowledge benefited the GTA games in terms of their strong soundtrack, in terms of the actors that they got to play, people like CJ and Franklin in the later games. There's so many dividends because Sam Hauser had gotten his start in the music industry.
Yeah, there's a great story about them testing out the soundtrack for Vice City. Sam Hauser, he loaded up his brand new iPod in the early aughts. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit with 80s tunes. Got in his car, floored it down the FDR freeway on the east side of Manhattan to see how it felt. To really be a vibes curator of what it felt like to drive to the 80s soundtrack. He's described by some of his fellow Rockstar people as having the vision of an outlaw, but the work ethic of a Puritan.
Wow. And yeah, the other brother, Dan, is a writer/journalist who loves movies, and I think that really comes through in the amount of pastiche that these games have, which we'll talk about later. But he is able to write a lot of the plot to the Grand Theft Auto games based on the influences that he saw.
He's also trained at Oxford. This is the kind of fucking high art we're dealing with here, because these kids are also insanely privileged. They went to a prep school that the 17th century poet John Milton went to. Early modern England gave us Paradise Lost. Contemporary England gave us GTA San Andreas, all from the St. Paul's School.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, they are so privileged, but we can't stress enough that these guys, especially Sam, they are just very cool guys, despite all that. You're probably imagining some like House of Lords figure as their parents, but their dad ran a jazz club in addition to being a businessman, and their mom was a babe who appeared nude in a gangster movie with Michael Caine. They were teased at school after their mom was naked on TV.
Yeah, just a eugenics program for being cool. We are breeding the cool into them. Yeah, Sam Hauser loved Def Jam Records growing up in the 80s and 90s, and he also loved games. He yelled his way into his first record industry job by just saying, why don't you hire more young people? Because we know what's hip, what's cool. It always blows my mind that Sam Hauser makes these massively successful games when he is in his late 20s, early 30s. He's younger than Giordano and I are as he is making these GTA games.
Jesus. As is the head of Take-Two, the gaming company, now made famous from making several great series, including the NBA 2K series, BioShock. But Take-Two buys essentially the gaming division of BMG to found Rockstar Games. So the two brothers, the Hauser brothers, they move from London, from like being in the music industry to New York to found Rockstar Games. And I just think it's interesting that it's this outsider's perspective of trying to portray a vision of America that isn't quite America, but is like a cartoonish version of it that I always think is very effective. I think it's why there are so many Jewish or Catholic comedians or Canadian comedians even, is this ability to not necessarily be a part of the thing that you're satirizing can be very helpful, that outsider's perspective.
Yes, because they both love and hate the excess of America. We're going to keep coming back to this idea of excess, but that's one of the main things that GTA is satirizing, right? It's about making lots of money, dealing lots of drugs, stealing lots of stuff, this consumption, this excess that's associated with America. They are both satirizing it, and they're also a part of it. They also want to get their bag. They also want to make these excessive, over-the-top games. Yeah, they're both inside it and outside of it.
And I think that they can see American culture that is normative behavior here and recognize it for being crazy. And so when they hear like an ad for a gun store on the radio or something like that, they can be like, oh, this is nuts. This needs to be parodied.
The store leading the fight against communism is having a blowout sale. Ammunition has a wide array of peacemakers. Come by Ammunition on Militia Mondays, exercise your Second Amendment rights, and get 10% off all armor-piercing bullets. We're the only gun store that lets you try it before you buy it. Need anti-tank missiles? We've got them. Flamethrowers? Oh, yeah. No credit? No problem. No money down. 90 days, same as cash. Shoot now, pay later. During the 10-minute waiting period, fire off a few rounds of the Ammunition gun range, featuring faces of famous commie pinkos. Come by Ammunition and register to win an anti-aircraft gun actually used when we whooped Australia's ass. This weekend is the Ammunition Film Festival with free screenings of the documentary Red Dawn. Ammunition, protecting your rights.
Their biggest, most hilarious blind spot is that they really fail to understand just how puritanical America is. They're like, we're going to push the envelope. Dude, they're going to push back, as we will see. It's the one thing they fail to appreciate. But speaking of, Rockstar Games, as it's acquired by Take-Two, moves from the UK to New York. They have a couple studios. There's Rockstar North, which is in Dundee, Scotland. And that's where a lot of the actual animating goes, where a lot of the creative types are. And then there's Rockstar in New York City, baby. I'm like so jealous of these guys in this moment. 5 dudes living in a loft in New York City in the early aughts. Maybe they're bumping into the Strokes, just doing their thing, making games, living their lives. And Rockstar is, like Adult Swim, a company with a vibe and a mission. Their mission is to make video games for adults. They have so much contempt for the kid shit from Nintendo, who were in the 90s the kings of video games. They say, we don't make games about Puff the fucking Magic Dragon. I don't know what game they're referencing. They want to make games that are fun, that are provocative. They want to make games that are interactive storytelling, and they want to be, most of all, cool, swagged out. We are not corporate. We're fucking Rockstar. And they really do see this as like, we want to be like Keith Richards. Keith Richards is old. Rock music is dead. Where is the sex, drugs, and rock and roll going to go? It's going to be in our fucking video games. That's their mission. There's so many insane stories where they just have real guns in the office with no ammo, unloaded guns, so that they can get a feel for it. And the thing that they get most mad about is that when people criticize video games for being excessive or too violent or having too much sex or whatever, they see it as hypocritical, as a double standard. You would never do this. You would never regulate books or TV or movies, and you only do it for video games because you have this stupid notion that they're only for children. But they're not. They're for adults and teens. I think one thing about them is that they're really, really good at playing controversy, especially in those early days when GTA 1 comes out. They find a few actual lords and they get the lords to comment in the British tabloids to try and generate free publicity. They do a lot of stuff that's really ahead of its time, like guerrilla marketing, like stickers and t-shirts and stuff that you might associate with bands. Game companies have never done this before. Giordano, you've done a little bit of guerrilla marketing for the pod, have you not?
Yeah, I actually did. I put one up last night at Pumps in Bushwick, but I've been putting the Remember Shuffle stickers on the back of toilet seats at dive bars so that if you're standing to pee, you can see them. So yeah, if you want to put one up at your local dive bar, let me know. I'll send you a few stickers.
Or if you see one in the wild, take a photo of it and post it to social media and tag us.
Flush first, but yeah.
I was thinking more of the ones you put on the back of stop signs or whatever. Yeah, and when the community of superfans emerged and they start their own websites about Rockstar games, Rockstar is like, oh, here's a resource. Let's communicate with them. Again, early days of the internet. And they have a ton of contempt for anyone who's a hypocrite, for anyone they don't respect. At first, they want to be in hipster magazines like Dazed and Confused. Again, we're Rockstars. We're cool. But once they start to blow up, when they have the authority and someone says, oh, we're only give you the most recent GTA game a 9 out of 10. They're like, oh, okay, we're pulling all of our ad revenue then.
Jesus.
So they just are cool. And they have this boneheaded idea that they're going to turn Rockstar Games into a lifestyle brand. This dies eventually at some point. In the early days, they're like, we're going to be a fucking lifestyle. It does remind me of the Entertainment 720 plotline from Parks and Rec. But they do a lot of their own advertising in-house. They say, we're not going to hire any agencies, which leads to just some colossally stupid scandals where they're like, we're going to have an ad campaign called Steal This Game. And the retailers are like, no, I'm not going to carry a product that says shoplift in my store.
Yeah.
One of my favorite of these like outlaw in the world of Puritans fucking lifestyle brand stories is that they throw this big party in the East End of London, where they're from. And word spread that Rockstar had invited the convicted criminal Freddie Brown Bread Fred Foreman to the bash, and he turned them down because the game was apparently too controversial for this man. Quoting Foreman, "Far as I can understand," Foreman said, "the video encourages you to rob, steal, and murder indiscriminately, and that is something I'm totally opposed to." This man has killed multiple people, but they're inviting real gangsters to their launch parties. And I think the last thing I'll say about early Rockstar and their whole ass vibe, part of the reasons the game snowball and balloon is that they have a no bad ideas in the brainstorm, yes to everybody, almost kind of non-hierarchical approach. Like Sam is there clocking in the crunch time hours in these early days. And they have this tradition where they go to a Mexican dive bar in the city and they have a contest to see who can eat the most deep fried cheese balls. Here is the rule. The object was to devour more, and I'm practically quoting Jack here, devour more gooey, greasy, deep fried, chili pepper sauce, baseball-sized globes of fat than anyone else. And the Rockstar employees would be waving fistfuls of cash and bet on the eaters like horses. They'd be screaming and shouting, and Dan Houser would be shouting through a bullhorn. The winner got $2,000 and 2 plane tickets to anywhere. To give you an idea of what kind of humor, this shouldn't surprise any of us as fans of the GTA franchise, some competitors wore yellow headbands with the word "Eat Strong" after the Live Strong campaign. In between the cheese ball rounds, you had to eat rounds of jalapeno poppers. This is so much lactose, it's starting to sound like an anti-Semitic hate crime. There were just vomit buckets around the room, and after you vomited, you had to chase with tequila and lime.
Oh my God.
And all I can say is that I hope this Mexican dive bar, I hope it will one day get some kind of plaque from the Park Service for their service. But yeah, that's what Rockstar was like in those early days. These are the people, and they eventually go incredibly corporate with their success, which is not terribly surprising. But yeah, it seemed like a magical place to work. All I can say, in short, it's a dudes rock company, all right? So let's move on to a zoomed out, holistic look at the GTA franchise. What do we love about these games? Why are they so popular?
Well, it's one of the earliest examples of an open world game where, you know what, you know the saying, "My life a movie"? These video games are really my video game life a movie. And I don't say that in the sense that everything is cinematic. I mean more in the sense that you are dictating what the player does. Most video games are on this track and you follow it and it's cinematic and it's great. But what makes Grand Theft Auto so great, and I think has a lot of games have tried to emulate since then, is just this idea that the freedom that you have to do things will result in extremely unique cinematic experiences that you feel happened randomly in a way that only happened to you and felt extremely satisfying and cinematic. You are so many times thinking to yourself, damn, my video game life a movie right now.
Yeah, and what kind of movie is it? It's The Sopranos. It's a Scorsese flick, right? It's a mob movie, a crime movie. These games are also just filled with so much shit to do. Yeah, the sense that you don't wait for the game waits for you. You don't need to do the missions. You can do whatever you want, especially in those kind of middle GTA games like GTA Vice City and GTA San Andreas. They had mini games where you could hijack an ambulance and then just decide to do ambulance missions. And there was no achievement to chase. There was no stat to grind yet. There was maybe a small cash reward for doing it, but it was really just to give you the option of doing the thing. Do you want to drive an ambulance around? Do you want to hijack a cop car and do vigilante missions? You can, right? You don't need to, but you can. Have you ever wanted to be a taxi cab driver? Hijack a taxi cab and drive the taxi around. And of course, the games are limited, right, by the technology of the time. You can't enter most buildings in these cities, but it gave you that sense that you could interact with so much of the game that you could make the player experience your own.
And it really allows you to unleash your Limp Bizkit id onto the world. You can truly break stuff. just cause unending levels of chaos and destruction in your wake. And each time it felt unique. Just the level of random, absurd violence and destruction was perfectly suited to you and your experience. In this game, you'll eventually go on a killing spree. You're eventually just like, what if I just went fucking Stephen Paddock on the world of whatever game you're playing? And I remember I had this one experience where I'm just killing people and the police start chasing me and I run into the mall. Inside the mall in Vice City, they play this very calming music that's very funny in that context. You know, you have like a 5-star wanted rating. All these police are looking for you. And the mall's like elevator music is sort of playing. And then the police, they come into the mall, you run in, you change your clothes, you come out, now your wanted rating is gone. But because there's so many police in the mall and you've been shooting people, people are now shooting at the police and the police are shooting at them. And so while there's this giant scene of violence happening in the mall, you just walk out with no wanted rating. And it was such a satisfying experience to know that I had created this unique experience that was a lot of fun and felt funny to me. That's the sort of limitless freedom that the game sandbox offers you. Is anything could happen because the game's engine is designed so well. Like Breath of the Wild or something. There's just so many ways to do an assassination that might result in so many little random satisfying details.
Yeah, people love choice. And I probably teased this earlier than I should have, but the fact that the worlds are these pastiches of different crime dramas. In the case of GTA 3, it's mostly Italian mob movies set in the Northeast. Your Goodfellas, Sopranos, Scorsese, whatever. In the case of Vice City, it's going to be Miami Vice and Scarface overwhelmingly. In the case of San Andreas, it's hood flicks like Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, Colors, and the 90s gangster rap hip hop.
Friday.
Yeah, and Friday. You get to live in this world. And someone on Rockstar was on the record explicitly saying that, quote, the goal is to make the player feel like he's starring in his own fucked up Scorsese cartoon. Again, mission accomplished. I think another thing that makes this game so great that we're going to dig down deeper into when we go game by game, the details. My God, we just finished doing a Sopranos season 2 episode where Giordano quoted David Chase saying, God is in the details. Well, fucking take me to church, Hauser Brothers. The fact that every game comes with radio stations, incredible. Radio stations with DJs, with music, with advertisements. When Vice City came out, they released a CD box set tie-in product with the game that was 9 CDs long.
Jesus. Yeah, the level of detail is incredible. Have you seen The Bear? There's this scene in the second season where a chef is taking off the skins off mushrooms and he's like, why are you doing that? No one's going to notice. And she's like, probably not. But if someone does, they'll really appreciate the fact that someone took the time to do this for them. And that's what Rockstar feels like. Sometimes you'll just find details in this game that are so hidden and probably 99% of people didn't see. And that makes it even more special for you to be like, I'm on a fucking island and there's a joke here or some like funny spoof that I'm sure the game doesn't point you to at all. And it makes you think that, oh, the rest of the world must be like this too. And it is.
Yes. This one's not so hidden, but the fact that you drive around this faux New York, you see posters for a gang film called Bad Fellas. Is it the best writing in the world? Is it the cleverest pun? Absolutely not. But I love that that's there.
And there's a billion of them. It's like The Sopranos, again, with the small details. It's like, are any one of these details mind-blowing? No. But it's abundant. They are everywhere.
Yeah. And yeah, the games, on top of all of the fun and the cool world and the city that thrives and breathes and does its own thing without you, they're also funny. They're funny in a sophomoric way. Absolutely. In a juvenile way. I find it very funny that the Hauser brothers are constantly talking about how games are for adults, but the humor is extremely high school. It's adults and teens, all right? In GTA 3, there's a German security company called Gruppe 6, which is German for Group 6. But if you read it without the German accent, it looks like Group Sex. There's a beer in GTA 5 that's called Pibwasser, and the B is that stupid German B that's meant to be pronounced like a double S. So the beer is literally called piss water. Wasser is the German word for water. There's like bilingual puns that are still about like pee. and group sex. Yeah, just like very clever, very juvenile humor in the game. They are, in the words of that woke CIA ad, unapologetically themselves at Rockstar.
Yeah, and they've bothered to characterize the characters in the game, which I think is pretty unique for video games of this time. Tell me, like, what is Mario's character like? How would you describe his character? How would you describe the Master Chief's character? You can't.
Paintball mask.
Yeah. But if I said describe OG Loke, like, yo, he's delusional, he's manic, you can actually describe a lot of these characters in the GTA universe.
Yeah, 100%. It truly did revolutionize gaming. Games had not done a lot of this before. So let's actually turn one by one. You know we love a good taxonomy here on Remember Shuffle. So we're going to go through the games one by one. We got GTA 3, which is I'm calling the warts and all one, working out the kinks. We got GTA Vice City, which is the zany 80s Miami one. We got GTA San Andreas, the pinnacle zenith of the series in the 2000s, the starting to grow up one if you want. And then finally we got GTA 4, the gritty, grounded, realistic, bleak one. And as I think you can tell from my taxonomy, GTA 4 is not my favorite. Let's start with GTA 3, the first one to be set in 3D instead of top down. Those first 2.5 games, because there was GTA 1, GTA 2, and there was a mission pack called like London 1969. Their philosophy was, who gives a shit if the graphics aren't as good as Tomb Raider? Gameplay, gameplay, gameplay was their motto. But then those games were successful but kind of cult hits. Then they moved to 3D. They start Rockstar Games. GTA 3 is the first one under the Rockstar label. And they really go ham. As they're making this game in the 3D world, they made sure that each car had 18 collision points so that they would smash and crumble more realistically. They went from having just a handful of speaking characters to having more than 60 speaking parts. They went from having 10,000 lines of dialogue to more than 100,000 lines of dialogue.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the first game for them to be fully voiced, because previous games had a lot of reading, and holy shit, listen to this cast of voice actors they were able to get even before GTA fully blew up. Character actor Michael Madsen, Kyle MacLachlan, who's the OG Paul Atreides from the 80s. You got Debbie Mazur, that's Shauna from Entourage. You got everybody's favorite Zionist, Michael Rappaport.
Yeah, working in the garage there in Portland.
Hey, I'm bored. When you gonna drill me?
In a moment, sweetheart. I got a little business to take care of. Chunky Lee Chung is pushing Spank for some new gang from Colombia or Colorado or something, I'm not really sure. Who needs details? Anyway, he's got a noodle stand down in Chinatown. That rat has sold his last stir fry. I want you to take him out.
You got Joey Pants in the game?
Oh my God. As soon as I heard his voice, I was like, holy shit, yes.
Let's go.
What's your problem? You come over here, you don't have anything for me?
And of course, we get Frank Vincent of Sopranos fame.
Hey, Luigi!
Oh, my girls have been missing you so long, Salvatore. You've been away too long.
You tell them once this unfortunate business is taken care of, we'll all go down to the club and celebrate, okay?
Yeah.
And here's a great story. I'm quoting Jack verbatim here. One day on set, the Hauser brothers marveled when one of their biggest heroes walked in the door, Frank Vincent. The silver-haired tough guy had been in 3 of their favorite Scorsese flicks ever, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, and Casino, as well as The Sopranos. Now he was here to do dialogue for a mob boss named Salvatore Leone in their game. He took one look at these scruffy Brits and said in his thick New York accent, I don't know shit about video games. I don't know what the fuck this is.
Let me see if I can do Frank Vincent.
Yeah, please.
I don't know shit about video games. No, I can't do him. He's awesome. And it was such a treat replaying this, just recognizing immediately all of these voices.
Yeah, getting real celebrities to do video games was something that Rockstar was huge and pioneering. And like you said, Giordano, I think it is connected to the fact that they were already connected generally through the music industry. Let's talk about the world of GTA 3 just a little bit. This is their first swing at Liberty City. Their stand-in for New York. It's New York in the late 90s, right? Early 2000s is the idea. You play as a silent protagonist whose name is only later revealed to be Claude, but is again totally silent that you can project onto him. And the story is that in the opening scene, you are betrayed by your lover, Catalina, and it's a revenge story. You need to murder Catalina, who you learn is like the head of the Colombian cartel. And to do that, you need to work with every single ethnic gang you can think of. There's the Italians, the Yakuza, the Triads, the Colombians. I'm sure there are some that I'm forgetting.
And hey, why does she backstab you at the beginning, Catalina? I don't know. Who cares? That's one of the warts and all things where it's like, oh yeah, there's a couple things that the Stones, I guess they left unturned here, but considering what a jump it was, we'll take it.
Oh yeah, there's clearly some plot threads that are just left totally woven. I don't know what you do with a plot thread, but untied. In the opening scene, you're in the back of a prisoner transport van, and the Colombian cartels break out. This guy who is called in the credits, don't yell at me, I'm not being racist, Old Oriental Man is broken out as a plot MacGuffin. Then later in the game, it's revealed that this Donald Trump stand-in named Donald Love needs this old East Asian man. Unexplained why. They do Tai Chi together at one point, and it's a mission to save him and bring him back to Donald Love. And then Donald Love and the magic East Asian man just disappear forever and are never referenced again. It's like, all right, cool, I guess. The real goal is just to get revenge and do it by any means necessary. But the world is awesome. I was driving around and the pedestrians will yell at you. I was asked by a pedestrian,
"Are you freaking retarded? I'm gonna bust your balls. Friggin' mook. Mamma mia."
Extremely early aughts thing that happened to me.
And yeah, the city that they've designed to look like New York, it is just such a fun fantasy of New York because it's not realistic, but it's realistic to the fantasy version of New York that we see in movies. That's what's so cool about it. And everything is so seedy. It reminds me of what we talked about in our Max Payne episode, where you get to see this disgusting version of New York that is very fun to be in.
Yeah.
There's hookers everywhere.
It's the world's oldest profession and apparently the world's largest profession in the world of GTA. It's a hooking-based economy we got here.
Yeah, there's muggings and crimes happening in the world around that have nothing to do with you. People just get run over on the street.
Yeah, the world of GTA 3 is like when Fox News described San Francisco. Yes. That's what it's like.
The city is using its budget to hire hookers for the policeman's ball.
What is going on?
There's a gang war happening between 6 different ethnicities. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. It was just the Italians and the Irish.
This is why we need to shut down the border. And I have one last phenomenal behind the scenes story about the craft that went up to this. So one of the major mechanics of GTA, as the name would imply, is the carjacking. Go up to a car, you hit Y, you throw the driver out. And this is their first time doing it in 3D. So they had to hire an actual director, like a film director, to do motion capture. And I'll quote Jacked again. To bring the 3D world to life, they rented a motion capture studio in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Actors would be filmed performing the parts, then the scenes would be translated to animations within the game. Rockstar hired a fearless young Iranian-born director named Navid Khonsari, I think, to direct the scenes. Before he went out, Sam and Dan kept repeating the mantra for GTA 3, real, real, real. So what this dude does is he makes a model of a car with gymnast bars and sandbags. He adds weight to the bars to make the doors feel heavy to open, and he essentially lies to both of the actors. He told the driver, hold on for dear life. And then he told the other actor to yell at the top of his lungs to freak out the carjacking victim. And he watched with glee as the scene unfolds, and the driver is freaking out, first in shock at the carjacker yelling, and they get this perfect animation of a real carjacking that they're able to animate into their game.
Yeah, that's so perfect. That's such a great example of the level of detail that they were willing to do is like, let's actually get what a body looks like when it's being dragged out of a car, when the Grand Theft Auto is happening. There's been so many clones of GTA that happened after this, and I was looking at some gameplay from a game called Getaway. Have you ever heard of this game, Ben?
No.
It was in development before GTA was released, but was clearly influenced by it, because if you look at it, you're like, oh, why does this just look like a crappier version of GTA? It came out after and is largely a GTA clone set in London that's supposed to spoof British crime movies. But it looks bad, right? Because it was supposed to parody like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, movies like that. And the carjacking feature was one of the things that I just noticed from the animation where I'm like, oh God, that's so much worse. Because when you carjack someone in that game, it's very simple. The person kind of voluntarily gets out of the car. And,
oh, excuse me, sir. Yeah. Good show. You've jacked my
motor carriage.
Yeah.
It's like Peter's joke about drive-bys in England.
Yes.
I say, Jeremy, isn't that Reginald B. Stiffworth, the young upstart chap who's been touting the merits of a united European Commonwealth?
Why, yes, I dare say that's the fellow.
Oh, let's get him. Reginald, I disagree.
Yeah, and so actually taking time to understand, like, hey, what does the human body look like when it's being dragged out of a car? And they'll do that throughout the entire series, is do motion capture on human beings to be like, what is the body language of someone who's being carjacked look like? Oh, surprise, then frantic shock, then forceful grab. They've really taken the effort to get all of these little details right.
Yeah. I also love that every game is going to have one kind of like throwaway plot line to try and anticipate some complaints. A major plot line in GTA 3 is that there's a new drug on the streets called smack.
Swank.
And you do need to like stop smack production or
Swank.
Or spank.
Swank is from The Simpsons. It's spank in this game. Yeah.
Swank. 10 times more addictive than marijuana.
Yeah, you need to stop the spank production.
It allows you to dance all night.
Yeah, so there's usually going to be one like war on drugs mission. Yeah, it's a good game. It's a warts and all kind of game. And when it drops, it's fucking huge. I might do a drop here where Colin Hanks went on The Daily Show to do an interview with Jon Stewart and just was raving about GTA instead of promoting his actual movie.
Because you got a little video game fetish, am I right?
Yes.
I'm the same.
Yes.
What do you got? What do you got for me tip-wise?
Grand Theft Auto 3.
Really?
Right? It's awesome. It's been banned in Australia. Here's just an idea of what this game is like, all right? You work for the mafia in this game. Basically what you do is, you've got this town and it's this really seedy town and you got to like carjack people to get around town. But what's cool is that like in every car you hijack, the person was listening to a radio station of their choice. And when you get in the car and after you've stolen the car, you're driving around, if like the music they were listening to is not to your fancy, you can change the channel.
What are the girlies like? Are they sweet?
They're pretty sweet. Yeah, they've got this whole thing where if you're running low on health and you don't want to go to the hospital to get more health, you go and you pick up a hooker. And she gets in the car and you take her to like an isolated locale and you just you put it in park and you just wait.
Yeah.
And then the car starts bumping up and down. And then once you see the car jumping up and down, then you look in the corner and it's got all your vital stats.
Yeah.
And you see that the money's going down.
Yeah.
The money's going down. The health going up.
You're kidding me.
Dude, if you want your money back, when she gets out of the car, you run her over, problem solved.
Now I know what to ask for the holidays.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Well, it's terrific to meet you, and Orange County's in the theaters, and I hear it's a nice, I haven't had a chance to see it, but I hear it's nice.
It's a good little flick.
You enjoy it?
I love it.
I would love to go, but I got to go out and buy a damn video game and sit with some hookers up in Inspiration Point. Get me some damn
It's going to
health.
suck hours out of your life.
Yeah, I don't want to like throw sales numbers at you too much, but it became the fastest selling, highest grossing title for the PS2.
Wow.
And then that record would be shattered by the next two GTA games. It tripled the share price of Take-Two games, which helped them do fraud for longer. It sold more than 6 million games around the world.
I don't believe it was that high.
Oh no. But yeah, runaway freight train of success where hip hop artists in New York were doing GTA samples and putting them into their songs. You had ecstasy pills in New York clubs were branded with the Rockstar logo, which I wonder how much guerrilla marketing they were doing. If that was truly like a love letter to Rockstar, or if Rockstar was doing like a GTA mission in real life.
Man, what I wouldn't give to be in East Village taking a Rockstar branded ecstasy pill in 2002.
Yes.
If there is a version of heaven, I hope that I can go there. Or at least I can smoke enough DMT to go there one day.
But Rockstar still has this chip on their shoulder about what games are and what they should be and what they could be. So the game wins a trophy for Game Developer's Choice Award. A Rockstar producer named, I kid you not, Geronimo with a J, Geronimo Barrera, picks up the award. He's wearing a fucking zoot suit and says, "This is to show you that video games don't have to be about hobgoblins and dwarves."
So much shade.
Listen, sometimes I just need a platformer, dude. These aren't mutually exclusive, you know?
Yeah, and just the fact that they put all of this stuff on a PlayStation 2 game. The entire game size of the original game is 1.6 gigabytes, less than that. And to have thousands of lines of dialogue, 18 different crash points on every single type of car, a map that satirizes encompasses Manhattan, Staten Island, and Brooklyn, Queens. It's just insane, the level of work that they put into this, which we keep saying, but it's worth stressing. There is a few things, though, that this game gets wrong. This game can be incredibly frustrating to play at some point because it's hard. People shoot you. Sometimes you just come around a corner and someone domes you, and you're like, great, I'm glad there's no checkpoint for this thing that I could have never seen coming. Because so often a mission is like, drive to this place, then kill people. Mm-hmm. And then inevitably, like, you get killed. It's like, oh, great, I can do this driving thing for like the 7th time.
Yep. The level that made me quit was a racing mission where you first need to find a fast car to steal, because otherwise you can't do the race. So I like go looking around for a fast car. Eventually I find a car dealership. That means every time I restart the mission, I need to steal a car, drive to the car dealership to steal the faster car, then drive to the race starting point. And I lost this race maybe a dozen times because the cars fucking handle like shit. And the map is not good, even in the definitive edition redo. And then I rage quit. It's tough to find that happy medium for video games where they're hard enough to be challenging and not boring, but not so hard to be frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the radio stations in GTA 3 are awesome, and they make the game so much fun. I ended up adding a bunch of songs to my Spotify because I heard them in the game, which is always great. But one of the radio stations in GTA 3 is just the soundtrack to Scarface.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I found myself just playing that station and playing to push it to the limit.
Push it to the limit.
All the time. And it really feels like with Vice City, they kind of took the feeling that you got from playing the Scarface radio station in GTA 3 and made that an entirely new game.
Yeah, and that's a perfect transition. Yeah, let's move down south to Miami, a city I've never visited. Not a lot of people know this, but the very, very first GTA, the 2D top-down one that was a cult hit that not a lot of people played, had 3 cities. And they were Liberty City, the New York parody, Vice City, the Miami parody, and San Andreas, which in that first game wasn't Los Angeles yet, it was a San Francisco parody. But they had an established canon of like, there are only 3 cities that matter in America. There's one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and Miami.
Yeah.
And so they moved on to the Miami one. Sam Houser's hilarious because he's this ambitious guy, but he has apparently very pedestrian tastes. His brother has some art house tastes in movies. Sam Houser likes big blockbusters. He's more of a music head and a game head than a movie head. He was on record doing Miami in the 80s because, in his words, Scarface is the ultimate, right? Montana is the ultimate. I just have a feeling that he was the type of guy who had the poster of Tony Montana in the hot tub with the cigar with the caption like, say goodnight to the bad guy. And he just looked up at it every morning and was like, ultimate.
He never saw the last 8 minutes of Scarface.
He got too stoked. He was like a dog with his tail wagging too hard. He had to turn off the movie before the end of it. Yeah, you literally get to live in Scarface's house in GTA Vice City. Remember that montage scene in Scarface that's set to push it to the limit?
Push it to the limit.
What if you got to push it to the limit?
Push it to the limit.
For a whole game, but you didn't die in the end.
Yeah, you got to fly close to the sun, and it only made you fly faster the closer you got.
Much like doing cocaine, it was all upside, no downside.
And if GTA 3 is a pastiche of New York Scorsese movies, GTA Vice City is even more cartoonish and pastiche because it's set in the past, because it's set in a fantasy, like Miami is kind of a fantasy land to begin with. It's a lot less realistic and a lot more cartoonish and fantastical.
100%.
There's this great detail that he bought every VHS copy of Miami Vice he could find on eBay.
Yeah, because it hadn't been digitized on DVDs yet. Because who the fuck is sitting here watching 80s Miami Vice? And so Sam Houser is watching Miami Vice on his lunch breaks. And he had to sell the people at Rockstar on this. They're like, why are we setting in the past? Doesn't that limit us in some way? And this is another Sam Houser quote. He called Miami in the 80s, quote, hands down, the grooviest era of crime.
It's the ultimate. It's the ultimate.
Didn't even feel like it was crime. You had Cuban hitmen coming across and gunning people down in the street, but it was still celebrated in a sort of haze of cocaine and excess and Ferraris and Testarossas. And it was a totally topsy-turvy, back-to-front period of time. It was everything that was crazy about the 80s, and it was in America, so it was even crazier. God, he sounds like such a fucking moron. I don't know.
He's awesome, dude. This is something that's come up on the pod a few times. I know we talked about it in Donnie Darko and a few other times, but the nostalgic period that they're looking towards in the 2000s is the 80s. I think that they're very similar decades in a lot of ways. That's what Donnie Darko was playing with a lot, is living in this Republican administration and wealth inequality getting worse. And the aesthetics are very similar, I think, musically and fashion-wise. And this is this gaming company looking at the 80s with these nostalgia glasses in a way that only the 2000s, I think, really could.
Yeah, they're living in the cool part of New York, East Village, Soho, whatever. They're playing New Order in the clubs. They're playing In Excess.
So slide over here and give me a moment. Your moves are so raw. I've got to let you know.
They're doing cocaine. They're like doing 80s things. And maybe not for everybody, but for the early aughts, for these guys, it's boom times, like the 80s. So that's what they're looking back to. And once again, here's just a list of Sam Houser going ham on the details because he wants to and because he can. So he rents out an entire movie theater and makes the entire team watch Scarface. He's watching VHSs of Miami Vice, like we said. He insisted that it wasn't just any Ferrari he wanted modeled in the game. It was specifically the Ferrari Spider GTB from 1986 with one side view mirror, not two. And this is a weird one. Sam Houser insisted that this game isn't even about the 80s. It's about specifically 1986. I don't know what that means. Truly, I got nothing, man. But he flew every member of Rockstar North in Scotland, the people who do a lot of the art and the animations, down to Miami, checked them into a snazzy hotel on Ocean Drive, which is the one that has all the beautiful Miami pastel Art Deco buildings. And he told them, live and breathe this place. Learn this place. This is what we're going to put on the screen. Give me neon. I must have neon.
And they did a great job.
Yeah.
The South Beach spoof in Vice City is, I think, the most memorable part of the game for me. It looks awesome.
And Dan Houser also inherited some of this. He wrote all the satirical radio commercials, and he spent hours listening to FM radio ads from the 80s, which is insanity. That's ludicrous. Each one of these games successively just grows exponentially. So the stat numbers are Vice City had 82 cutscenes, 200 pages of dialogue, 600 pages of pedestrian dialogue, and 300 pages of radio scripts. That is 1,100 pages of dialogue for a fucking GTA game.
Wow. Yeah, he really wrote a War and Peace worths of dick jokes and mob dialogue for this game.
It's insane.
1,100 pages. Oh my God.
Yeah, they literally were barely able to fit everything onto the PS2 DVD. They pushed it to the limit. Push it to the limit.
Yeah, everything in Miami is so seedy. The women on the beach are wearing these tiny G-string bikinis. You can go to the strip club. You can own a strip club in this game. And once again, it's a very cynical game in that all the things that you do to make money in this game typically are making the world a worse place, right?
Yes.
And you're doing the dirty work for bad people, and not just like drug dealers, right? But also businessmen, land developers, people like Avery, people like a pornographic film studio that you can own and operate, right? People like Candy Sucks.
Voiced by Jenna Jameson.
Yeah, everything in this game is so seedy and tantalizing, especially if you're a teenage boy.
You know, the Scarface plot is about how he's undone by his greed and ambition. It's kind of like the Macbeth story. This is like, what if he didn't die at the end? Like, that's what we're joking about. The plot line of GTA Vice City is that you play Tommy Vercetti, a guy who came out of jail, just did 15 years for the Italian mob up north. He gets sent down south to be out of sight, out of mind. A drug deal goes wrong in the first mission, and you need to get the drugs and get the money and get the power and get the women. And the game ends with you just on top. Yeah, it's good to be the king. It's good to be great. The first game's a revenge story. You get your revenge and that's it. The second game is like, I am the king of Miami in the 80s. It's awesome. Which is probably how the guys at Rockstar felt. And yeah, the fucking voice actors they got. You got Ray Liotta, Mr. Goodfellas himself, R.I.P., as Tommy Vercetti. You got Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, Burt Reynolds as Avery, the fucking property developer, and Jenna Jameson as Candy Sucks.
And Luis Guzman as Ricardo Diaz.
Oh, really?
He's the original Scarface figure in the city until you supplant him and take his mansion. You have William Fichtner, who's playing Ken Rosenberg, your lawyer slash fixer.
The anti-Semitic stereotype of an anti-Semitic stereotype.
Yeah. They're basically doing a spoof of Sean Penn's character, the lawyer from Carlito's Way, but making him even more cartoonish and anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen to the rest of these voice actors. Danny Trejo, Gary Busey, Tom Sizemore.
God damn, dude. Moving on to the masterpiece, the pinnacle zenith of the series, the starting to grow up one. Let's go to GTA San Andreas.
Oh my God. This game is so nuts. We tried to watch a lot of playthroughs on YouTube because it's much faster to watch someone play the game where they don't die and repeat the same mission 7 times. The playthroughs for GTA 3 and GTA Vice City are like 4.5 hours long. The playthrough for San Andreas is 11.5 hours long. It is quite literally 3 games in one because not only is it like a Los Angeles spoof, but also a San Francisco is included in the game, which they don't even do in GTA 5. And there's also a Las Vegas in this game too.
Yep. But yeah, that 11.5 hour playthrough, that's with a lot of the meaningless fluff and driving cut out. This is a 200-hour game.
Wow.
Abundant. That's the word.
Yep, truly.
And it's very funny to think Sam Hauser is on his Sam Hauser shit again. But this time, instead of sending his employees to beautiful Ocean Drive, South Beach, or whatever, he's sending them to South Central Los Angeles. And some of them are like, I was scared.
That is so funny to think about. These are developers who are like, yeah, we're real rock stars at the office. Yeah. We do ecstasy with the Rockstar logo on it. And then they're in South Central LA and they're like,
Yeah, one of them told a story where he had a driver and someone in South Central was demanding that the driver unroll the window. And he was like, don't do it. I don't know who that is.
I mean, the actual developers of this game, I kind of imagine to be like the David Cross character of this game. Zero. He's like the electronics nerd.
Hey, Z, where you at?
Go away, Carl. I'm very, very busy back here.
Then them some pretty strong draws.
I am a 28-year-old man whose landlord just helped him down from a hook from which I had been hanging from my underwear, contemplating my inadequacy for nearly 2 hours. Ow, my crack.
Look, you gotta get even, homie. What kind of weapons you got?
I've got a prototype of a miniature plane. Launch the Red Baron.
That has a horrible remote control flying mission, right? One of the worst, yeah.
If Vice City was this nostalgic, fantastic look at the past and taking the original GTA 3 and saying, hey, how do we make this even more pastiche and fantasy-like? This is actually going in the opposite direction from GTA 3. It's probably more like GTA 3 than it is Vice City in that they really wanted to ground it in realism. And that means that actually a lot of the actors that are part of the main plot are not Hollywood actors on purpose. Because they actually got people who lived this lifestyle. Young Melee voices CJ in the game series, and he is a Crip from South Central LA. And it led to this incredible verisimilitude. Actually, his cousin was cast as Franklin in GTA 5, and his cousin is an incredibly entertaining guy. Solo. If you can find any clips of him on YouTube, I highly recommend it. He's got a lot of great stories about growing up in this environment and the things that he had to do to survive. Literally, him living with his mom and his siblings and selling crack and having people show up to the house and shoot at him at all hours. Having the police actually pick him up. They beat him up to get a confession out of him and he won't give it to them. He's like 16. And so, yeah, they dropped him off in hostile gang territory and just hoping that a rival gang would kill him for the police.
Which is the first thing that happens in GTA San Andreas, right?
Yeah. So they're able to actually take all these great details from real life, from the real lives of people, not the real life of Scarface or Carlito's Way, but the real lives of actual people and create this extremely intimate story of a guy and his friends and family that feels so much more grounded and emotionally available than the other games.
Yes, and they keep some of that chaotic Rockstar energy because this game still has a jetpack.
Yeah.
I would also add.
Well, especially as the game goes on, I think the first act that takes place in San Andreas is a lot more like family-like and fun. And then, yeah, once you move on, they ramp up how ridiculous it can be. But you meet these guys and see them do things that are very lived in. Your hometown gang, the Grove Street family.
Let's go.
Including Big Smoke and Ryder. Ryder, who makes his own dip cigarettes in the backyard.
Hell yeah.
It feels so lived in and real.
Yeah, by this point, they have people begging to be on the game. They have local rappers, they have local gang members asking to be on it. And there's this hilarious moment where a South Central LA gang member has to read a line written by this Oxford-educated Brit and hits the word rubbish and is like, I would never use the word rubbish.
That's one of my favorite stories you told me about the development of this game, and a perfect example of what hiring real-life guys gets you, so that when you put the word rubbish in your script because you went to Oxford and they get to it, they're going to be like, what the fuck is this? Like, yo, man, that's rubbish.
They end up hiring DJ Pooh, the screenwriter of Friday, and his job is to de-Brit the script.
That's awesome. Yeah, DJ Pooh also grew up in South Central and was a producer for like a ton of different artists, which is how he got to know the Hauser brothers so well. And he ended up finding them guys like Young Melee and guys like Solo because he was a music producer. He kind of knew who was who in the neighborhood.
Nice. And yeah, it does crib a little bit of pastiche from movies like Boys in the Hood or Colors or Menace to Society, but they hit the problem where like those movies are all anti-gang violence in some way, shape, or form. And they want to be like, wouldn't it be fun to go on a drive-by with your friends? Wouldn't it be sick? Rockstar Games and GTA is no stranger to controversy. And they had controversy preemptively where it's like, okay, you're going to have a black lead that you play as. And yeah, they are like a violent criminal. And it's like, ooh, company full of white people. It's a little dangerous. But you can see that they tried to get ahead of it by getting all these essentially like South Central consultants.
People have called CJ one of the best black characters in a video game.
It has more emotion than any other game. The opening cutscene has CJ holding his head in his hands as he walks into his childhood home after his mother had died in a random act of gang violence, right? There's a certain tenderness that was totally lacking from what, like Tommy Vercetti? Ray Liotta's Tommy Vercetti?
Yeah. I don't think Tommy Vercetti or Claude, for that matter, ever experiences any sadness or remorse or anything beyond a need for revenge and violence and greed.
Yeah. And yeah, the main gameplay change on this one is that much to Hauser's chagrin, they incorporate a lot of RPG elements, which he's always been opposed to because that's the hobgoblin genre. But for the first time, you have skill trees. And he framed it as, this is another way that we're going to let the players have fun their own way in the sandbox, right?
Yeah.
So you can get fat by eating pizza. You can get fit by hitting the gym. Driving and shooting skills can be grinded. You can get haircuts. There's like a million customizable options and a million different things you can do and stats to grind for the first time.
Yeah, and it's incorporated into the cutscenes, which was always funny. So when you are fat and are just running around in your underwear with a mohawk, CJ will be like that in the cutscenes too.
Yeah, it gets a little bit of the Sims treatment, but it works. Yeah, this one is the most successful one yet, just like the last one. Sold 21 million copies, best-selling game for the PS2. And yeah, people call it a terrific, unending masterpiece of a game, to quote reviews from the time. A monumental game that has now redefined the standard against which all future games like it will be measured. And like, yeah, it's San Andreas, obviously. It's perfect. It's a perfect game that I have never finished. It does remain highly satiric, and their favorite target for satire remains American excess and the hollowness. But in this one, they can't be full-on shitbird. They have to be kind of serious sometimes because of the nature of the subject matter, because of the story, and because of course, the racial angle. We're telling a story about poor black folk in South Central LA.
Right. Do you have any examples of the satirizing American excess?
The most direct example of satire is always going to be the radio commercials, right? If satire is taking a position you don't like and taking it to its most extreme end, it's the advertisements for products.
Cock-a-doodle-doo, it's time for chicken.
Eat a 90-piece bucket, you can tell.
He's been to Clucking Bell. The chicken is a bird with a tiny brain.
So we assume he doesn't feel any pain. We shrink their heads and we breed them fast. 6 wings, 40 breasts, and then they're gassed.
Cock-a-doodle-doo, we're psychotic crazies.
farming's insane. We denied it all before our stock price fell. Come down to Clucking Bell.
Clucking Bell. If you enjoy it, the chicken didn't die in vain.
They have a parody of Fox News called Weasel News. That's the biggest parody of some of the consumerist and political excess of America.
Once again, its ability to take a city and then reduce it, because it's not just recreating LA, it's recreating their own version of LA that feels very fun to be like, oh, this is a weird version of Santa Monica or Rodeo Drive. You really feel like you've kind of visited LA after driving around the city so much. I just went to LA last month and it was cool to be like Beverly Hills. And I feel like I got the gist of it from playing Grand Theft Auto, and now I'm here and it's just like it. I will say their portrayal of San Francisco was a little bit less on point. There's too many highways. They really didn't get the density of San Francisco right. But LA I thought was really, really good. And just your ability to see all these subcultures that you might not otherwise have a chance to see. I used to live in the Mission District in San Francisco, and like that subculture around lowriders is very real and is really fun to see guys every Saturday taking their lowriders out, which I heard if you like fully trick one out, it can be anywhere between $100,000 to $200,000. Taking these old cars and fixing them is a hobby. And there's this group of people in GTA that you can race and do lowrider stuff with.
Do the lowrider DDR dance mini game.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that a video game can take you into this real subculture a little bit and give you a glimpse of what it's like is really interesting.
We will talk about hot coffee, listener. Don't worry. We can't talk about San Andreas and not mention hot coffee, but we're going to do it in our themes section because there's a lot to dig down there.
I think just the characters are the funniest in this game because in the previous games, they are mostly just parodies of TV and movie people. Whereas people like Big Smoke and OG Loke, I feel like are parodies of real people potentially. And it makes it a lot more unique because it's a more specific portrayal of someone. OG Loke is my favorite character in any of the games and is this guy who he gets out of prison and he wants to be a rapper while working at the burger restaurant. And he's so delusional and manic and confident about his own skills. Even while washing dishes wearing the burger hat in the back, he's like, yo, man, you got to get the record executive my mixtape. You got to break into his house or you need to steal some speakers for like a party I'm throwing.
Check this out. I'll roll with you, and on the way, I can get a couple of freestyles. It's OG Loke in the place. You don't want to stop me with a gun in your face.
Yeah, man. Let's shut the fuck up. Maybe I need to do this on my own.
I just think he's one of the funnest characters. They'll have little details too when you're with Big Smoke. Like if you pull up to the fast food restaurant, he'll order 5 different things.
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7, 2 number 45s, 1 with cheese.
The radio station's great. They feature a lot of 90s hip hop.
Yeah, when you go to Vegas, it has an Ocean's 11 style casino heist mission that you get to do. We all love a good heist.
Really? Nice.
I never finished it. That's about where I lost. I don't remember the San Francisco missions being all that interesting. I think it was one of the weaker parts of the game.
There's less parody there in San Francisco.
Yeah, we were talking about this. I think it was made too early to really go into tech and roast big tech a lot. I think if they made it today, they would have more fertile grounds for parody and satire.
They roast an aging hippie, I think.
Yeah.
And that's about
the truth. TT.
Yeah, that's about as far as the San Francisco parody goes.
We all know there are no more hippies left in San Francisco.
All right, yeah, should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on to GTA 4. So we've talked on this pod about the gritty, grounded, realistic trend of the late aughts. Your Casino Royales and your Batmans. And GTA 4 is for sure that. It's yet another masterpiece because of its portrayal of New York City, I think in particular. This one is the closest to real life New York. If Liberty City in GTA 3 was the idea of New York, GTA 4 is a love letter to actual New York. You start out on Brighton Beach with the Russians. Every major New York landmark is there. You got almost every borough. Instead of Staten Island, they give you a bit of New Jersey, but you get the South Bronx also. The portrayal of the city is so good. This one's not super my favorite because I think they kind of lose the script about fun. It is too gritty, grounded, and bleak. There ain't no fucking jetpacks in GTA 4. Let me tell tell you that. Because you play as Niko Bellic, a Serbian ex-paramilitary member who did genocide, and it is strongly implied dabbled in human trafficking.
Wow.
This is like GTA 4 Unleashed. There's nothing they won't say.
I think that is a funny idea, tying it to the dark, gritty reboots of the era, giving it the same treatment as what we were doing to superhero movies or James Bond at this time.
Yes. And the plot of the game is that Nico shows up to New York to pursue the American dream, and his idiot cousin has run up a gambling debt, Roman, and you need to do the GTA thing, work with progressively bigger gangsters, and eventually your past comes back and you can't escape it. You meet the guy who betrayed your paramilitary unit and led to all your friends getting killed. The moral of the story is that there is no such thing as a clean slate. There is no such thing as a fresh start. The American dream is dead and false. It was never real to begin with. And the two endings that you can choose between is either your cousin Roman dies or your girlfriend dies, depending on choices that you make. And Niko Bellic literally says something like, I guess I should never let anyone get close to me in the final cutscene of the game. Come on, man. We're laying it on a little thick here.
Hey, Nico, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. How's married life?
It's okay. Hard to be happy when your wedding goes the way ours did. Kate's death was very unfortunate. Nico, don't blame yourself.
There's no one else to blame, Roman. It's my fault. It's my fault because I got close to her. I shouldn't get close to anyone.
Yeah, this is something that Al pointed out to us, that GTA 3 is inspired by like Scorsese movies, then Scarface for GTA Vice City, and then Boys in the Hood for San Andreas. Apparently GTA 4 is based off of Russian mob movies, including like Brat and Brat 2. And apparently these sort of themes of bleak endings are something of a theme in Russian cinema.
Oh, that explains it.
Could we not at least have given it the treatment we gave to San Andreas, where we were like, okay, the subject matter is kind of bleak, but maybe it doesn't have to end that way.
Yeah, you can still have some fun along the way. And this one, again, it's the Housers on their Hauser shit, right? Everything we said for the past 3 games, apply that lens again. I'm actually going to worry this episode might end up boring in terms of us just listing all the shit, but here are the details that they did, the Housers mining, because they're based out of New York. This is the shit they can do. They use census data to get the perfect ethnic makeup of each neighborhood.
Jesus.
Researchers grilled the Taxi and Limousine Commission to find the precise ratio of cabs to other cars in New York City. They set up a time-lapse video camera just to watch the sky. They watched DVDs of traffic patterns for New York. They researched auto sales reports so the makeup of car models would be just right.
Oh my God.
And the most insane one of them all, the audio engineers spent hours getting just right the sounds for the amount of coins in a character's pocket.
Yeah, that really sounds like 2 dimes and a quarter, all right. We got it.
Giordano, you said when we were talking about GTA 3, not everyone's going to notice the detail, but the people who do are really going to appreciate this. Who the fuck would notice this?
I know some people who might notice.
This one also cranks the knob up on that Sims level of activities that you can do. And in the book Jack, David Kushner says that there's just some sublimely banal everyday moments to the game. Like you can ride the subway. You can go to the car wash. This game had an in-game internet with 100 websites. The sites were like Friends Without Faces to satirize social media, or craplist.com instead of Craigslist. And then you can play your video game as Niko Bellic, go to Nico's apartment and watch TV in the game, in which you can see stand-up sets by Ricky Gervais and Cat Williams.
Man, my dad would have a conniption if you told him this. What was the episode where I made fun of his basketball comments?
Or
Sims. It was The Sims.
Yeah.
Well, what if I told you there was a real basketball court that you could play on? What if I told you there was a real TV that you could watch Ricky Gervais on? What if I told you there was a real subway you could ride?
What if I told you there was a real city called New York? Yeah, it's wild. The trend line just keeps going up, right? This game costs more to make at $100 million. It's 4 times the size of the other GTA games. It's 18 radio stations instead of 10. They just keep getting bigger and more detailed. That is the point that I have hopefully hammered home by now. There's no limit to their ambitions for size and detail that they will do, these motherfuckers at Rockstar. And it is kind of what makes it great. Even though I don't love this game as game because of the plot, I love the world. I first played this when I was in my senior year of high school, before I moved to New York City. And I feel like it did instill that dream in me. Like, I want to move to New York. I want to hang out with my cousin all the time.
That is the one detail I remember from high school, I think, playing this game the most, was your cousin just calling you incessantly, asking you to go bowling.
Constantly, let's go bowling. And let me tell you, my friend Shammy, who came on our Sims episode, we were roommates when we were in college, and I had GTA 4. I remember coming home one day and Shammy was playing GTA, and she was just playing it like The Sims. She was hanging out with Roman, she was going on dates, she was playing darts and going bowling and getting drunk, and like, I think she was better at playing the game than I did. I think she had a better time just playing it like The Sims. One last thing I'll add before we move on to themes. GTA 4 was also the game that, in terms of the grittiness and realism, when you ran over a car, it would bloody your bumper. It was the first game where if you crashed a car, you could fly out of the windshield. It's the first game that would let you get drunk and then drunk drive, and like the controls got fucking woozy or whatever. They really did smash that gritty, grounded realism button. If you like it, you liked it. It just wasn't quite for me. Luckily, they had a DLC called The Ballad of Gay Tony, which let you do all the ridiculous shit, like steal a train.
And then 5, I guess, is outside the scope of our decade, but any broad thoughts on 5?
Yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's perfect. It's the only one I've finished. Yeah, it's a perfect game. 10 out of 10. How about you?
If you were just to tell me I have half an hour to play any one of them, I'm probably playing Vice City.
Yeah, if there's a time constraint, I'm going Vice City for sure.
Just getting on the motorcycle, one of the mechanics that game introduced.
Couldn't swim yet, though.
No, good God. Another frustrating thing in this game is that if you land in the water, it's over, pal. Yeah. And it's extremely difficult to dock a fucking boat in that third one, let me tell you. Nothing more frustrating than finishing a mission and drowning, trying to park the boat after. Getting sent back to the beginning.
You live in Miami, you have a house on the water, why can't the character swim? All right, so we are going to move from a summary of these amazing games to some of our themes and some of our big ideas. And I think we need to start with censorship and the related moral panic. So I teased this earlier, the hot coffee mod. During the development of GTA San Andreas, Sam Houser wants to continue to push the envelope. And he says, we've done it with violence, but now it's time for sex. Do you like sex? If you love sex, you'll love GTA San Andreas.
GTA San Andreas.
The problem is that video games self-regulate through the organization called the ESRB. And so this is the equivalent of your rated G, PG, PG-13, R, and then X is the highest pornographic label for movies. For games, it's E for everyone, T for teen, M for mature, and then AO, adults only, for something that is truly pornographic. And Sam is trying to thread the needle. He wants to put sex in, but he wants to not get that AO label. Because if you have an AO label, 80% of Rockstar's distribution network, Walmart, Target, Best Buy, all the big chain stores will not carry the game whatsoever. So we have these internal emails from Rockstar that are fucking hilarious. Again, to peer into the mind of Sam Houston, I'm going to read directly from Jacked to read some of these emails. On Wednesday morning, July 14th, 2004, he fired off an email to Jennifer Kolb, the director of operations for Rockstar. Jennifer, how are we going to handle the approval of certain bits of content in San Andreas? We are keen to include new functionality and interaction in line with the vibe of the game. To this end, in addition to the violence and bad language, we want to include sexual content, which I understand is questionable to certain people, but pretty natural, bracket more than violence, when you think about it, and consider the fact that the game is intended for adults. Here are some examples of content that will be displayed graphically. Are you ready for this, Trudano?
Mm-hmm.
I love this. This is a bullet point list. He writes, blowjobs, full sex, parentheses, multiple positions, dildo sex, parentheses, including being able to kill someone with a dildo,
oh my God.
Whipping, parentheses, being whipped, masturbation, parentheses, one of the characters is compulsive. This, caps, must be kept. This is the fucking artistic integrity he's talking about. Oh, sorry, the email's not done. All of these items are displayed both through cutscenes and in-game. I know this is a tricky area, but I want to find a way for this to work. The concept of a glorified sha shop, Walmart, telling us what we can or can't put in our game is just unacceptable on so many levels. All of this material is perfectly reasonable for an adult. Of course it is. So we need to push to continue to have our medium accepted and respected as a mainstream entertainment platform. We have always been about pushing boundaries. We cannot stop here. How do we proceed with this? We really don't want to cut these areas. Please advise.
Wow. What a hero. This man he's the ultimate, honestly.
Yeah, Sam Hauser is the ultimate.
Because this decade was so fraught with religious censorship, the evangelical movement. That's what Donnie Darko was kind of talking about. We had this reemergence of fucking scolds, fucking church leds. It's like one of the reasons why I think the atheists from the decade were so annoying was because they were a reaction to this even more annoying thing.
Yeah.
It is just really nice to see someone fighting back against that, to be like, fuck you, the game will be better. And that's ultimately what's at stake here. Is one of the things that makes our games great is being seedy. And yeah, we're not going to censor ourselves because some kid can get a hold of it. And honestly, that's not our problem. That's the parents' problem.
Yeah, we have that label right on the thing. That's your problem. So they have some back and forth, and eventually they do back down because they read the regulations and they say, listen, we're getting an adult-only label. We won't be able to fight it. Another choice quote, we got to uphold Hauser's thought here. Quoting Jack again, sometimes the hypocrisy of Sam's adopted homeland was mind-numbing. Sam would marvel at states such as Utah in the reign of the Mormons. Had the game industry come to this? Were they living in a virtual Utah? Freedom of speech? Isn't that how the country is justifying the invasion of Iraq and other places? We must expose such flagrant hypocrisy. If you're going to talk about liberal values, I need to be able to get my dick sucked in a video game. But they're pouring through the codes, and the really funny thing is seeing how different countries approach this. So here is what they get back to him about how they can do this. Okay, I can't read it. It goes on for pages and pages, but they say like, hooker in car blowjob. We need to show much less of the critical mouth to penis area. Hooker stand-up blowjob. This needs to be removed or implied. Sex with girlfriend. Essentially, this is all beyond the bounds of M and 18 readings. Needs to be removed or implied. Sex shop workers need to have slightly more nipple coverage, particularly for the States. This goes on for pages and pages of excruciating detail of what is allowed and what is not. Male nudity. Full frontal nudity is acceptable as long as the penis is not erect. An erect penis should be avoided entirely, or we would need it to be pixelated. And what's really funny is that, games are released internationally. And so this is the last quote I'll read on this. As Sam read the guidelines, he saw how each country had its own seemingly arbitrary definitions of what would nudge a game into the realm of unacceptability. Spain and Italy were fine with nudity, including erections, and lax, as Donovan put it, with regard to sexualized violence. France was okay with male nudity, no erections, and female nudity, though, as Donovan explained, as long as it could be considered erotic and not pornographic.
What?
I don't know who decides that.
Yeah.
While Australia didn't permit male nudity, female breasts and buttocks were fine. Spanking across the world was pretty much a no-no, with the exception of Spain and Italy, where it was okay if it was part of the story. Awesome. Let freedom reign.
Oh man, that is so funny. Having to navigate globalization and regional rules about sex. It reminds me of, I used to work at a cable company in Canada, and a coworker of mine who went to Princeton, his job, because as a cable company, we would show a lot of pornography, as long as it didn't break the owner of the company's 9 rules about a porn scene. And so the rules were like, no more than 3 guys for every girl, no more than 2 people in one orifice. It was a bunch of rules like that. And so this guy who went to Princeton, his job was to watch all of the pornography and mark down the timestamps of where people broke the owner's rules.
Oh my God. That sucks and fucks. So in any event, they can't make it work, right? The cuts are everywhere. Sam is horrified. In an email, he says, it doesn't feel like we're pushing any boundaries now. Why bother? I really, really do not want to change this stuff. It feels so wrong at the behest of psychotic, Mormon, capitalist retailers. I love the spite between the creator and the retailer. Who are these fucking shops to tell me what I can and can't put in my game? This is a game. It's comic. Airplane, the movie, was more offensive. Please, can we not forget the edginess? things that got us here, he wrote. And they kind of have a point. They just want games to be regulated the same way a movie would be. And you wouldn't give Airplane an X rating, even though it has some titties in it, if I recall correctly. So what happens is that Rockstar ends up wrapping the code. So they don't delete the code, but they bury it. So the files are still on the disk for this interactive sex minigame, but you need to mod it to be able to find it. And essentially what happens is, of course, in this community of modders, someone finds it and they call it the hot coffee mod because CJ's girlfriend invites him in for hot coffee. And then there's a sex minigame where you use a thumbstick to thrust and increase the excitement level. Stupid fucking GTA, the goddamn minigames. And this is a colossal scandal.
I remember when my dad sat me down and told me, you know, Jordan, you could have real sex. There's this game, actually, it's very lifelike, where you can have real sex with a real South Central hoe.
Nice. And yeah, Rockstar just handles this incredibly poorly. The first thing they tell everyone at the company is don't answer the phones. Never answer the phones. But eventually when they release a statement, they throw their modders under the bus. They lie and they say, this wasn't in the game, the modders invented it whole cloth.
Something that's just so easily verifiable.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, give me a copy of the CD and I'll look for it. Presenting exhibits 1 through 6 million of evidence, which is every CD that's out there.
Yeah, I don't know whose fucking idea that was, but they are easily caught. They piss off their modding community. And as we're going to talk about in a bit, GTA has had scolds and school marms and Puritans gunning after them for years for the violence, and they could never get anything to stick. But now, thanks to Hot Coffee, they did have something. And this shit hits the fan. The Federal Trade Commission starts investigating them because essentially they charge Rockstar with manipulating the ESRB rating with being bad faith. The state doesn't actually cancel Grand Theft Auto. It is the independent video game ratings board that puts an adults only label on the game and results in a massive recall and re-release of the game that ends up costing Rockstar $25 million. But this game was essentially not carried for a little bit by most major retailers because of this code that you could only access through a modification.
This is so annoying. Shut up. You have to mod it. Something that 99% of people are not going to bother to do, nor know how. You have to go online and figure out the modification to see someone have sex. The amount of effort you have to put in is a million times more than the amount of effort you would need to find internet pornography.
Yeah, right. It's insane. But Jordana, you're underestimating the fact that it's interactive. It is teaching the children how to do this.
Right. Yeah, that's so stupid. And so American, right? In the way that we always joke about America. This is a game where, yeah, you kill hookers, you kill police officers, district attorneys, just run over millions of pedestrians. But it's finally the sex thing that the scolds get to stick legally.
What's that I see? Is there consensual sex between adults? Yeah, it fucking sucks. And yeah, Sam Hauser literally gets brought up in front of the US government. They're reading his emails, and it's insane. This is the biggest win that the censors get against GTA. The moral panic around the fucking sex mod that gets this game canceled, essentially. They need to re-release the game without the code. They need to go in and delete the code and re-release it. But let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about a little fella by the name of Jack Thompson. Because Jack Thompson...
Man, this guy is the ultimate. I take it back. Jack Thompson is like a character from the GTA universe in terms of his cartoonish devotion to being a scold.
He is a Republican. He is a born-again Christian. He is a lawyer, but he doesn't practice. He is a stay-at-home father.
Well, also because he's been disbarred.
Well, that happened after a lot of this stuff. But yes, he is currently a disbarred lawyer. He spends years coming after violent video games. He also tries to come after violent movies. He guns after hip-hop stars. And his tools are the media and lawsuits. And he's kind of the Magneto to Sam Hauser's Professor X.
Professor X.
Anytime there is some kind of youth-affiliated mass shooting or crime, this guy starts drooling like Homer Simpson thinking of donuts. because this is his opportunity to come after the fucking video game industry. I lost track of how many states and how many multi-million-dollar suits that he's had, because he'll sue Rockstar and Best Buy and Walmart and Target and Rockstar's parent company, and it'll be like, oh yeah, this person who is already in jail for committing their crime, I'm gonna do a civil suit of 9 different companies for like north of $200 million for having the video games cause this crime, and they all get thrown out.
This man has never won a case, ever. He's like, what if Lionel Hutz was hired by the Heritage Foundation? He just gets money, I think, from PACs and stuff like that to be a professional scold. He just hates all the funnest things. 2000s Howard Stern, 90s hip hop, Grand Theft Auto, Doom. This guy is just a professional guy who sues people and goes, all of America's problems, video games and violent music, violence in movies and sex on TV.
Yup. And this guy, he plays the media like a fiddle, and the media deserves so much contempt. Donald Trump was right. They are the enemies of the people. Because the media keeps putting this guy on TV. His method is he does the big lawsuit and then he goes on TV and he makes a shitload of money from these appearances. And when the lead lobbyists for the game software industry, or when someone from the ESRB talks to the media, when these two institutional powers talk to the media will tell them, we know Jack Thompson is a hack, but people like the story.
Yeah.
So we're going to put him on TV. He got so much airtime. He went on 60 Minutes. He went on NBC News. He went on Phil Donahue's show. Phil Donahue platformed him, which is kind of disappointing because we've praised him in the past. He went on Sex Pest Matt Lauer's show, and Matt Lauer was like, tell us about how bad video games are, right? Literally, when we had the Beltway sniper, one of the things that he said on Matt Lauer's show was, and I quote, the one-shot methodology is indicative of a video game. What are your expertise? What are your qualifications? Why is this guy on national TV?
Yeah, every time he would sue the video games companies after some kind of mass shooting, they would inevitably prove that the shooter didn't own the game and had never played it, or had last played it 4 years ago in the case of the Virginia Tech shooting. And so it seems weird to suddenly say that it was a result of this video game.
Also, it's one of the most popular video games of all time.
Yeah, and it's more just evidence of how popular video games are than anything. You could say, oh, almost all mass shooters had seen a violent movie in the last year. And it's like, yeah, because they're massively popular. That was his argument too, that if you look at every mass shooter, they had played a violent video game in the last year. And it's like, yeah, well, that's just because they're part of our culture now. My favorite one was Posey. I think he killed 3 members of his family, his father, stepmother, and stepsister, and then buried them under a manure pile. According to Thompson, he was able to act out, copycat, and replicate and emulate the violence that he saw in the video games. He essentially practiced how to kill in this game. If it wasn't for Grand Theft Auto, 3 people might now be dead, which is hilarious. Just the idea that Grand Theft Auto is practice that you require to actually do these killings. Maybe if the teen had killed his parents using like a remote control helicopter bomb, or he had put them in a porta potty and then buried the porta potty in cement.
Yeah, I can maybe see it. Yeah.
I mean, he just shot and killed them. I don't know how much training Grand Theft Auto really provided him. When the video game Bully came out, also made by Rockstar, he fucking had a conniption about that.
Sure.
But he drew attention to the fact that the main character, who's a 15-year-old boy, you were able to kiss other boys in the game. And Thompson really thought that this was the trap card that he had been waiting for. He wrote to the ESRB saying, we just found gay sexual content in Bully. Check and mate. And he said, good luck with your teen rating now, Rockstar. And yeah, the ESRB was like, yeah, we knew about that detail when we gave it the teen rating.
Yeah, the man's truly obsessed. There's a story in Jacked that he's told in his memoir too, where he sent his own son to buy a copy of GTA Vice City and then secretly filmed it from the parking lot to prove that they were selling to minors without carding them. He's like Jimmy McNulty using his kids in a case to advance something. But yeah, his end goal would be to sue these companies for all their work so that they shut down. And he thinks that violent video games should not be treated like violent movies, which is like the current status quo, self-regulating violent movies. toys. They should be treated like drugs and alcohol. They are rewiring the children's brains. The funniest thing about Thompson is that he kept suing all these companies with these multi-million-dollar suits that all led to nothing because there's no link that you can make for First Amendment grounds, all sorts of reasons why these were just flashy, media-oriented things that he was doing. But in America, you need to pay your opponent's legal fees if you lose. So he racked up a huge debt, and eventually he reached a settlement with Rockstar, and part of the settlement was that he would stop suing them. And then he got disbarred. He sucks so hard. I think one of his only victories is that he did temporarily get Howard Stern taken off the air in Miami, and Howard Stern had to pay a massive fee. I think like $500,000.
Wow.
But he wasn't alone. He had his allies in politics cracking down on video games.
That's right. Yes. He had allies like Elliot Spitzer, who came out in 2006 against GTA. He pointed out that there's prostitutes in the game that you can simulate having sex with. The teenage prostitutes, save that for the real governors and not the fake ones in the video game.
Joe Lieberman, who recently passed away, he's been an opponent of video games since the early 90s when he wanted to launch an investigation about the spine-ripping Mortal Kombat. Some of his works, he sponsored the 21st Century Media Accountability Act that would have charged retailers $10,000 fines for selling violent games to children. Really not a fan of being transgressive or provocative. He said, women are the new target of choice in most violent video game. First off, I don't think that's true, but this relatively small but highly popular minority of games is not pushing the envelope. They're shooting, torturing, and napalming the envelope beyond all recognition and decency.
Yeah, this is the second time we've actually brought up Lieberman being a scold on the pod. If you recall, he was also one of the main guys trying to get Jackass shut down for cooking an omelet and eating it. Because it didn't satisfy OSHA safety requirements around cooking things.
That's so funny. So good. Yeah, and even someone like old Slick Willie Clinton called for an FTC investigation into marketing of violent entertainment to children. Children shouldn't be playing violent video games. They should be giving Bill Clinton massages.
Listen, I played the arcade games at my favorite place, Comet Ping Pong, and they're getting out of hand. I've seen the children come up from the basement and play the video games at the arcade at Comet Ping Pong. Anyone can walk into the Comet Ping Pong and play those games. It's not right. We need a rating system.
And yet, I'm just trying to stress how much this was a bipartisan thing and that they all had their boosters in the media. So United States Representative Joe Baca, a Democrat from Southern California, introduced the Protect Children from Video Game Sex and Violence Act of 2002, which wanted to make it illegal to sell M-rated games to anyone without permission from their parents. This motherfucker literally went on CNN and said, and I'm quoting him here, "We saw what happened in Columbine. These are kids that are being programmed. They play the video games, they take the action in the character, they begin to play the character, and then they begin to commit those particular crimes." Insane. This guy's saying there are more Columbines about to happen because of video games.
Yeah, well, Dylan Klebold was a big Leisure Suit Larry player, right?
And of course, I know we're running long because there's just so many people saying this, but we got to talk about Hill Dog also.
Our old friend. I am fun.
I am fun.
I like playing games like the children's Bible games.
I'm a big what's the city planning game?
Oh, true. Sim City fan.
Yeah, Hill Dog. She ends up working with Jack Thompson, the psycho. Whenever someone talks to you about how great bipartisanship is, this is the kind of bipartisanship that they are talking about. Because Jack Thompson calls her and warns her that more Columbines are coming. Man's an Old Testament prophet, practically.
And you know what? It's just funny because, of course, like, he is correct. Like, more Columbines are coming.
But not because of the video games.
Yeah, no, it's a very brain thing to be like, and the problem is the video games. Yeah. And not the ready access of firearms and increasing depression in society.
Yep. Yeah. Thompson writes to the Entertainment Software Association about Hill Dog, saying millions of American parents should be thankful to the senator for striking back against what can fairly be called grand theft innocence at the expense of our children by only some within your industry. God, their
grand
ass.
theft innocence. Drop the mic.
And then Hill Dog also attempted to introduce legislation in the U.S. Senate. So all of these bills that I've mentioned, none of them, of course, passed. And some of them have been state, some of them have been federal. It is truly hard to keep track of how many of these grandstanding fucking stupid bills were introduced, but of course could never be passed, because how would you actually enforce these? But Clinton's legislation wanted to ban the sale of violent and sexually explicit video games to children with a $5,000 penalty for retailers who do so. She's on the record saying the disturbing material in Grand Theft Auto and other games like it is stealing the innocence of our children and is making the difficult job of being a parent even harder. Clinton later said, I am announcing these measures today because I believe the ability of our children to access pornographic and outrageously violent material on video games rated for adults is spiraling out of control. We need left-wing populists, dude. This is insane. But I would just say, in summary of this moral panic shit, right? It is so frustrating to think about how much mental energy and emotional energy was spent debating the merits and pitfalls of Grand Theft Auto, or how are we going to regulate video games, and what is the moral responsibility of blah, 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 blah. Like, again, I stress the extremely lib brain take of not talking about guns, not talking about depression, not talking about the violence that the American government is meting out in the Middle East. This is what we get instead. And you can see by the fact that the media collaborates so readily and entertains this. Like, it's all the politics, the media, the activists, they're all wrapped up into one package of just distraction. And I mean, appropriately, since we're talking about Grand Theft Auto, this is spectacle. This is the fucking spectacle for you to watch.
Yeah, it's just so clearly meant to be a joke and like cartoon violence and like fantasy. And this is coming at a time when the U.S. military is making America's army to recruit high schoolers with violence that is done to get you to join the military to really kill people.
Yep.
And yeah, you're scolding the thing that's trying to remake Scarface.
Yeah. There's a reason when most people see GTA and they see you mow down a pedestrian, it is so cartoonish that most people's reaction is going to be laughter rather than a gasp, right? Because it's so over the top. Did Looney Tunes cause mass shootings? Because some of this is like Wile E. Coyote level shit. Building on this idea of censorship and moral panic and this unholy alliance between the media, the political class, and the psychos like Jack Thompson of the world, they all feed off one another in this parasitic relationship. We've talked a lot about censorship, we've talked a lot about spectacle, and we've talked a lot about distraction. And I think all three of these ideas intertwine in a really interesting way when it comes to GTA in the 2000s, right? This is some true Nero fiddled while Rome burned bullshit that's going down. And I don't think it's an accident. This is a time where the military strategy for the war is called shock and awe. We're like, we may not have as many soldiers, but we got more guns, we got more tech. We're going to shock and awe them into submission. And you, concerned citizen, we're going to shock and awe you with the Jack Thompsons of the world coming on to your news program, to your NBC nightly news programs, and frightening you, saying that the Beltway shooter's targeting indicates that it must be a video game trained person who did it. Then I would also add, like, it's actually kind of bleak to think about how similar our media is now in terms of producing a spectacle. We are recording this in the spring of 2024 when the breathless news media can't stop talking about protests on college campus rather than the profound violence that they are protesting. It's like Rage Against the Machine said, a spectacle, monopolized, the camera's eyes on choice disguise. It's the same kind of distraction tactics of focusing on the discussions or portrayals of violence rather than the violence itself. I would just close this off as saying, like, one of the things that people lob at video games is that they are a distraction from real life. So I think there's another layer of the irony that our video game discourse is itself another distraction from, you know, the horrors, the horrors of reality.
We're adding Jack Thompson into the canon of remember shuffle saints along with Troy Duffy. He is the ultimate.
Okay, so we can move on. That's our main theme. The one last thing I'll say, one thing we love on this podcast is people failing to understand satire. GTA is a highly satirical game, and one of the controversies that almost stuck to Rockstar was the Kill All Haitians scandal. There was a little controversy for the Haitian community, because in GTA Vice City, there's a mission where you, while working for a Cuban gang, need to go assassinate the Haitian gang. And one character has a line that says something to the effect of, kill all the Haitians. And this line got taken out of context and promoted everywhere, and a minor scandal erupted. And Rockstar actually did comment on this. Normally, Rockstar was a very reclusive company, so much so that the rest of the industry got very frustrated with them for pushing the envelope and then never actually coming out and defending themselves, leaving the defending to other people, to the ESRB or some of the big software gaming lobbies. But they actually did make a statement about this Haitian thing, saying they didn't mean to cause offense, but the line is taken out of context and blah, 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 blah. It's part of a story. Just because in the game doesn't mean we condone it. The funniest aspect of this is that the president of Haiti at this time, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, also commented on this, saying that this line was so deeply problematic that he wanted to hear from Rockstar. Meanwhile, this man was overthrown in a US-sponsored coup. This guy who was worried about an American video game is not nearly concerned enough with the fucking American deep state that was about to overthrow his government. And our last big idea theme that we'll say, Gen X excellence.
Yeah. The game's, like Adult Swim, extremely irreverent and cynical in a way that sees a vision of the world that is greedy and corrupt and willing to be a part of that greediness and corruption as the main character. You're not saving the world from any of these things. In fact, you're making the world worse.
You also have the fact that the two creators are Gen Xers, and one unique thing in terms of the aging up of gaming is that this is the first moment in history where you can have creatives who have played video games their entire life. These guys were raised on video games, and now they're adults, and they want to make games for adults. Whereas the earlier generation, I don't know who the fuck was making Pong, but they didn't grow up playing anything but, I want to say, Hoop and Cup, you know? Or maybe Hoop and Stick.
Yeah.
Some kind of hoop-based game.
Jack.
Okay.
Cool. We just want to do a section here on, like, no bad ideas in a brainstorm. We know that they're remaking another GTA right now, and they're going back to Vice City, but what are some of the other areas they could make GTA parodies for?
I have an idea. This is a good faith idea. If you, listener, work at Rockstar, or if you know someone who works at Rockstar, here's my pitch, my Mad Men style pitch. I want a GTA game that is set in all of the states of the Red Dead Redemption games, but in the present day. I want it to be a neo-Western pastiche. I want to have a crime story like Breaking Bad, like Narcos Mexico, like Justified, because there was a coal mining town. No Country for Old Men, yes. For any graphic novel fans out there, the graphic novel Scalped rocks, the Native American crime story. Set it on the Wapiti Reservation that we know from RDR2. I've been replaying RDR2 recently. Yeah, some of those Elmore Leonard stories about like coal mining Appalachia, because we got that there. Oh, get me some of that Ozarks shit. That movie like Winterbone that's set in that like redneck kind of crime thing in the Missouri style place. I think it'd be fucking sick. That's what I want to see. If you know someone at Rockstar, run it up the flagpole.
That's actually a really good idea. I have more of a traditional Remember Shuffle idea. If you think about all the megalopolises of the United States at this point, we've covered 3 of them. I think there are 5 total, but the one that they're missing is like a Great Lakes / Rust Belt GTA. And I just think that this area would fit perfectly for the Grand Theft Auto universe because, yeah, like I just said, so much of Grand Theft Auto is seeing a greedy and corrupt world and making it worse. And so you could do things like intimidate doctors to set up pill mills to make passive income off of, or bust up unions, or destroy neighborhoods to create a highway, or escort NAFTA signers. Maybe there's a mission where you just have to destroy foreign-made cars. There's a couple drawbacks, though, to setting GTA, like a Piston City or something, where, like, if you commit a crime, you get a wanted rating, but the police just don't show up at, like, an hour. There's no pedestrians to run over because everybody else is in a car. It takes the fun out of the game a little bit.
Yeah, there's too much urban sprawl. You could have a mission in Canada. You could go across the border to Canada in the Rust Belt GTA. And
it'd be Windsor, too.
Yeah, Rockstar would probably have some fun with some stupid Mounties bits or some shit, some lazy Canada jokes they could do.
Maybe there's a radio station in this game that only plays Bruce Springsteen and like Billy Joel's Allentown, just a bunch of Heartland rock.
Living on a Prayer, some of the Bon Jovi shit.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah, cool. So final thoughts, I guess, we'll talk a little bit about GTA 5, GTA Online, and the upcoming GTA 6.
Yeah, I mean, this is normally where we do our echoes in the culture, and there's kind of no reason to talk about echoes per se, because GTA is still happening. GTA 5 comes out in 2013. It's a perfect game, blah, blah, blah. It's outside of our arbitrary window, but they've kept releasing content for GTA Online, and I checked the numbers. It is sitting at 100,000 monthly players. That's the average, which is actually much higher than it was in like 2013, 14, 15 at launch. It's not like WoW that has descended. People are still fiendishly playing GTA Online. So this game that got its start in the 2000s is still just this absolute institution that is still with us. And I, for one, am incredibly excited to return to Vice City in GTA 6 sometime in 2025.
Yeah, it's funny now when we got that trailer this year or last year, because we've always known GTA to be this pastiche of movies, right? And then to see it parody social media so well was a really cool innovation to find this new form of media to parody.
Yeah, it's rolling with the times and the punches, right? Instead of being a pastiche of Goodfellas and Sopranos and shit, it's a pastiche of 9-second Florida vines that you might remember, which is hilarious. Yeah, insanely excited for that. And yeah, the biggest, most longest lasting impact, and I think we've gotten to the point where I'm actually starting to get over it, but everything is an open world game now, right? Everything tries to be. Few are as successful as GTA. Like the Assassin's Creed games, or the Crackdown games, or the fucking Spider-Man games, or the Arkham games, or Just Cause, or LA Noire. All these games are open world. You do the mission on your own time, but none of them have the fleshed out world with all of the details and all of the activities that can only come from the beautiful mind of the Hauser brothers. Like GTA Clone is an entire subgenre now that we talk about for a reason.
Some of those GTA clones are pretty fun, honestly. Simpsons Hit and Run, Spider-Man 2.
Nice. Yeah, so I don't think there's anything else to be said. You know GTA, you love GTA. That's been our retrospective. I think there's some really interesting stuff behind the scenes about what it says about the 2000s as a decade. And it's always fun to dunk on the scolds. So as I always say, please like, please subscribe, please write a review on Spotify. It really helps the show. Giordano, do we have any kind of call for action this time?
Your mission is to write a good review. Yeah, there's no checkpoints, but you will get Remember Shuffle 100% completion if you write a review on wherever, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. Podcast Addict has a review system.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. Ciao, ciao. Have a good one.
Cool. Peace.